Welcome back, developers. So basically today we are just going to be doing a simple email validator program which looks something like this. Prompts the user for their email and they enter an email. And it tells them if it's valid or not. We also added for other providers like Yahoo, Hotmail, and all that. Let's get into the video. So today we are just going to be building a simple email validator. As usual, you think of what you want to achieve. So here we want to check an email of a user and tell if it is valid or not. So firstly, what does an email look like? An email is a string of text that looks something like this. So having this email, we can see that it has subscribe to projectby@gmail.com, where subscribe to projectby is an identifier similar to a user's name. Then @gmail.com is the domain name for the email service provider. So we have to check an email of a user and tell them if it is valid or not. So this is the email they gave to us. So from this, what can we use to tell them if it's valid? This @gmail.com is kind of like a general thing among emails. So we can also have another email that looks like this and it still has that same @gmail.com. So we can use this @gmail.com and know how to differentiate between a fake email that looks like this and a real email that works with @gmail.com. So let's get into it. So first thing, we create a variable and store the email to it. So this is the email. So there's something called string slicing. So if we slice this string using the square notation, we could collect the start index and the stop index, which is usually the length of the object if you want to get the full email, the full string, sorry. So if I print this to the console, I'm going to get subscribe to projectby@gmail.com. Then if I reduce this length to something, let's say 15, it reduces to starting from the 15th index, which is E, this E, down to the end. So using this, we can access specific characters in this particular string of text. So since we said they have something in common, which is @gmail.com, we could as well get the index of this start at and then stop at the end, which is length of the email. So we are just going to say from 20 to the end, we get @gmail.com. So with this, if another user comes, and we get the index, it should still give us this same result, which is @gmail.com. But imagine a user now that has a shorter name. You can guess what is going to happen. We don't get anything. That's because the start index 20 is not even up to the length of this particular email the person entered. Let's print the length and you see. As you can see, the length of this email is 17. So it can never be possible for it to have a start index of 20, which is this @. So seeing this problem, instead of using positive indexing, we are going to use the negative method, which starts from the back, which gives the negative index of a particular number. So the last value usually has an index of -1. So if we count up to @ you can see -1, -2, 3, 9, 10. So if we decide to say -10, we get @gmail.com. So with this theory, no matter the email, we still get @gmail.com. That is a good thing now. So let's go ahead with this code. Email equal to inputs we could then use an if statement, if, and then use this our @gmail.com value to get it. Then else, let's if the email is invalid, we should tell them that the email is invalid. So if I run this code, I'm prompted to enter my email. So I enter an email. Your email is invalid because it doesn't have @gmail.com. So let me write a better email. You have a valid email, you can proceed. So what if the person only inputs @gmail.com? You have a valid email, you can proceed. That's a problem. We'll get to that later. And also another problem that I just thought of now is, what if they don't use @gmail, they use something like @iCloud, or they use @Hotmail, for example, Jane Smith @yahoo.com. Now it tells her that her email is invalid, whereas she has a valid email with Yahoo. So we can create multiple if statements. Check if it's Gmail, if it's Yahoo, if it's from Outlook, and these are just the 5 I'm going to be using. So now if the person enters an email, we get your email is invalid. Now why did we get that? Because the same index that Gmail uses is not the same index Outlook is using. So because of that, we have to now, for each of them, say count the index. For Outlook we have -1, 2, 3, -12, -11, -12, -10 also. So now if I come here, you have a valid email, you can proceed. So back to what I was saying about the length of the email being just the email service provider. That is also a possible mistake, but we'll just add a failsafe which checks if the length of the email is greater than 12, let's say 10, because @gmail.com and @yahoo, which is the smallest, already contain 10 characters. So it's just going to be a simple like another else statement. Your email is invalid. But if they enter an email like a@gmail.com, in as much as is also invalid, we are not the service provider, so we could just give them the pass because we are just checking a simple email validator. So if you notice, this is 23 lines, and two things: is repetitive, is not clean, although it's semantically arranged, but like it's not a good way to write code. So we could look here and you see it's 23 lines of code. Now I'm going to shorten this code into something less than 15 lines by doing this. We have a data type called list. Instead of checking if statements for this, we can create a list containing all these email service providers, so that in the future, if we have another email service provider that's like @pipro.com, we won't need to come and start copying and pasting, counting how many the length is and changing it and stuff like that. We could just need to add it to the list. So we're going to populate a list with all these suffixes. That's what the email ends at. So now we have a list containing the email service provider, and now that we have this, we are not going to be using the string slicing again. What we just do instead is to look through the list of email service provider for suffix, call it suffix, in list of email service providers, of email providers, print suffix. So here we see all the suffixes. So we can then check an if statement. We can then create an if statement. If suffix in email, we should then go ahead and tell them they have a valid email. Else they don't have a valid email. So if they come here and they say something like yo@yoyo.com, your email is invalid. If they say yo@gmail.com, you have a valid email, you can proceed, your email is invalid. Now this is happening because I used the for else statement. This else gets printed no matter what. So we have to also write something to make that not show. So we are going to create a boolean and say found equal to false. Then if found, if suffix in email, we could say found equal to true. Instead of using a for else statement, we then come and check if found, if not found, meaning if found, which is this boolean value, is not true, should tell them that their email is invalid. So if they come here and say your email is invalid, better. So about the other thing, I've not yet added it for the length of email. You have a valid email, so we're just going to add a line of code to check the length. So with this, we have a simple email validator. Now you can use this, check emails. Don't also forget, keep on practicing and try new things on your own and see if you can do anything to make this code better. If you have anything to impute, write it down in the comment section. I would love to hear from you. Bye. See you in the next one.